Howdy. So, just finished up 30 Years' War, Europe in Agony. This was, unfortunately for me, I haven't been feeling terribly well. And this was hard to get through. It's also a game of a nature where not a lot happens between choices, and the choices are big ones, and I kind of shy away from playing games where that's the case. Or at least they feel like they are. They begin to become less big as you go on and get more used to them. But it definitely drags them out. Those are things people like about CDGs. Lots of choices, lots of options. But for me, it makes it harder to play. And that's just why it took me a little longer, along with heavy workload. Well, let's look at the components a little bit. The map's pretty, it's functional. It has lots and lots of charts and information on it. And once you find all the little boxes to put things in, you can find places for most of the counters where they're designed to be. The player aids are kind of flimsy. One of them is a pure setup one. I don't know how much use that really is. It's a one-use thing. You know, each time you play it, you look at that once. I don't mind if that's in the rules instead. But the other one's very helpful. Has sequence of play, victory conditions, for peace negotiation, the peace negotiation chart, which you will seldomly use. I didn't use it once, but as long as it's in one place, it might as well be in the others. Effects of pillaging, and how you have to pay, the rates. This is key, though. This set of information is what I referred to just about every turn, because it's different for every country. Where their supply base is, whether or not they get free supply, what they can recruit and where, and whether or not they have any special rules applying to them. Big deal. And even with this, I ended up missing some points, like Imperial and Bavarian units can't stack together until a certain card comes out. But that is a huge piece of value in the game, because there's nothing like it anywhere else. The rule book, to decipher, to collate all that information, you really would have to make that chart. So that's a great advantage on it. Counters are serviceable. I found them slipperier than usual. Maybe I'm just clumsier than usual. But I had a lot of trouble with the stacks. Now, part of it may be that the control markers are little tiny pieces, and quite often I had bigger pieces stacked on top of little pieces, and that worries me there. That's not necessary. That's just, you could probably place things otherwise. The cards are sort of that stiff, heavy-duty type that GMT was putting out for a while. I'm glad they've gotten away from that style. If they do a reprint, hopefully it won't have these, but they're hard to shuffle. They may be sturdier, but they're not really less likely to get damaged. I noticed a couple of mine getting damaged because of how hard they are to shuffle. So, yeah, sleeving these may be more important than doing so with other cards. The rule book, I was expecting to be absolutely terrible, because there were sounds that it was bad. I didn't find it too much worse, or any worse, than most CDGs that GMT puts out, or maybe most CDGs. It's it may have a few little errors in it. There wasn't a errata, but it was just a page, and I didn't really feel that there was anything that I absolutely couldn't have figured out. There may be some ambiguities, there may be some contradictions, but for the most part, I didn't think it was worse than most. It was also not better than most GMT CDGs, which is to say, you read it and you say, I got no idea what I'm doing, or at least I don't. maybe some of you can figure these out and understand immediately what's going to be, the effects of the particular, can you move more than one unit with one card, or what, all of these little pieces that don't translate well. The base mechanism goes through all the games, but it's always tweaked a little bit. And I don't know why, but I have a lot more trouble picking up those changes than I do, say, the changes in operational systems of different types on the traditional hex encounter game, or tactical systems, or whatever. Some of those are widely more variant than this seems to be. I don't know if it's the rules, if I have a mental block, or what. Okay, let's talk about the game, though, because for being ill and struggling my way through it, and maybe not wanting to play the next card right afterwards, which sometimes I feel like doing, though a lot of times in CDGs I want to walk away after one card play, and come back and do another card play later, because it is a big decision for me. So I don't know how much that was different, but for all of that, I actually really like the game. I cannot recommend it in general to everyone, because, one, it is from an odd period. Now, it's rated a little higher than I expected from some of the things I've heard people saying about it. I think maybe part of that rating is so many of us are looking for the definitive game, not just on the 30 Years' War, but on so many of these untouched periods of military history, or inadequately touched, because there have been other attempts at 30 Years' War. There have been quite a few. I can think of 3 offhand that came out, and hopefully one of mine's coming very soon, and I have another one that I don't have high hopes for. But sometimes you pick up a game and you say, yeah, this is it. This works. I felt that way about Here I Stand, for example. That clearly, for its subject matter, something else might come out that's as good, but I don't think it's going to be easy to beat. With this, you don't have that feeling still, but I do have the feeling that it's better than anything else I've seen on the period. And I've seen a couple of games that don't terribly thrill me on the 30 Years' War. They're too light a treatment. Now, is this a heavier treatment? Yeah, so-so. The cards, and this is the beauty of CDGs, add a lot of flavor to the game without making it terribly complex in the rules in and of itself. That's the beauty of the CDG system, is you can throw all this flavor in without making people page through charts and this, that, and the other. There are disadvantages, there's no question. But this particular game has some weird quirks about it, and some of them came up in my play. Well, first of all, that starting deck is tiny. People are not used to picking up the deck of cards and having to reshuffle it every single turn, and you have to do that very soon. Another is, to a large extent, the players control the pace of the game and how the decks proceed. So the Catholic in my game held off quite long with the intention of keeping the French out of the game. May or may not be a good decision. We didn't see the French being too impressive. There are other things that aren't clear because of the existence of the cards. For example, how important it is to maintain some semblance of an imperial force and a Bavarian force, or else you've lost the entire thing. The country is gone, essentially. That's not made clear, and there really should be some level of designer or player notes to touch on a few of these things, because it's pretty discouraging when, if you're playing, to come across, oh wow, I got all these cards that I can't use for their event because they'll make new leaders that I can't place because I don't have troops. That I found very discouraging because my plan was to keep Wallenstein out of the game as long as possible. Well, that doesn't work. And I'd at least like some sort of hint as to that before I start playing in the player's notes, in the designer's notes, whatever. Also about the card, the initial deck size. I think it works very well, but I could see players walking away after having played maybe a short campaign, and there are more than one campaign to this. There's scenarios that just handle the early war. Let's say you start with that, thinking, well, that'll be the easiest. It's only 5 turns, and you know, it's only the first deck. I don't have to have too much complexity in here. Well, you play that and you start seeing that deck recycling. And you're saying, what? I don't get it, you know. A few words by the designer as to why they're doing that, why they made that choice, why they think that giving the players more control over their hand every turn, because they really do know exactly what they're going to get once they call their deck a little bit. I think if some speaking towards that, even if somebody doesn't necessarily agree, were made, it would make an easier bridge for the player to make that decision for themselves of, you know, do I really like this? At least I understand what the designer was attempting to do. There's nothing in here. There is nothing in here. There's a scattering of notes, historical notes. I think there's some design notes within the booklet itself, which I would rather not have designer notes and historical notes are okay, but I'd rather not have designer notes embedded in the rules. I don't think I see any. There may be some. There's historical notes and examples, definitely. But I do want them, and I do want play notes. They don't have to be detailed. In fact, I would rather not usually see, you know, what I give you, which is this detailed example of play within my rule book. I don't mind if it's in a separate book too much, except I know I'm paying for it, but whatever. This may be, and it certainly is the best of those that I've seen, the best treatment of the strategic elements of the 30 Years' War. It's not terribly detailed still, though. And that's one of my gripes. But at least, unlike some of the others that I've seen, at least this one has a lot of flavor and a lot of feel that doesn't just feel like tacked on charts to roll to see if somebody just got thrown out a window or something. I wasn't thrilled with the other treatments I've seen, but this one I could definitely see pulling out and playing again. And I actually think that it's an interesting game, but like a lot of CDGs, it's going to have that kind of curve of a couple of playings to have a feeling of what kind of strategy actually works in the game. You know, so for example, I will never, ever lose all my units of a country if I can help it now. But I didn't see that as that big a deal. I figured, there's going to be cards to give me more, because that's what I'm used to in CDGs by now. I'm used to there being a way to get troops back. Well, there isn't in this. And actually, with the veteran troops, there just isn't a way back. That's the kind of thinking that I'd like to see in the notes, is why people who've played it a few times, what things they want to protect and what things they think are worth aiming for. At least some warnings on some of the key issues. Anyway, I'm not feeling terribly well. I want to play more games this weekend, and I'm planning on it. I don't know what I'm going to do. It may be not this. It's not clipped yet. It may be Gloria Mundi. I'm also playing around with the idea of Something that is more comfort food for me, something I already have played. Nothing's coming to mind right away. Certainly not 1830. I don't have that kind of energy. So it's kind of tough for me to think of anything that's light enough that I do want to pay attention to. Silverton went through my head a little bit, but that's just too big a game as well. So I don't know what I'm doing. Good chance it's going to be Glory Monday. Anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. I know I gave a worse treatment or a more low-key treatment than maybe I should have for something like this. And I definitely was having some trouble with the rules as well. All right, take care.